Hey, good morning. Good morning. Another episode of After the Buzzer Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Lee Jones. I got my guy, Marvin Orange, on with me. What's happening, Marv?
What's going on, man? Happy Saturday.
Yeah, I guess I can say it's a no Diddy Saturday morning. So that's we're just gonna
Ah,
leave that where it is. But hey, man, we've got a great show planned for you guys this morning. We got some great topics. We're gonna start out with a college football preview of the Tennessee Oklahoma game. And Marv, I want to get your thoughts on the big SEC battle between Tennessee, Oklahoma. Really want to find out which one you think is legit and how this game is going to play out. You know, a lot of talk this week about Florida State and going 0-3 start. Memphis beating them last week. Wanted to dive into what is Mike Norvell's buyout, and if he's bought out, would Deion Sanders be an adequate replacement? Would he be at the top of the list? Want to dive into that Colorado Baylor game today just to see if Colorado loses, what does it say? If they win, what does it say? You know, you're my resident Colorado expert, so I want to get your opinion on that. Want your thoughts on one of your homeboys, Bryce Young benching, put bench this week for Andy Dalton. I want to get your thoughts on that. If he can, come back from that big signing in the NBA, Joel Embiid. What? Almost $300 million for Joel Embiid. Let's talk about that. Let's dive into that. Is he worth it? Man only played like 60% of his games. So is he worth it? Is this a sign that they're all in on winning a championship in Philly? And then finally, look, the basketball season is about to start. And there are talks all out there that LeBron and Bronny will play together on opening day. I need to hear from my guy, the Hall of Famer, the point guard. I want to see what your thoughts are about Bronny, LeBron, opening day. I think it's October 22nd against Minnesota. So we got a lot of topics to cover this morning. As always, like, subscribe, hit that subscribe button, tell a friend. We need all of you to subscribe to the show, and let's get it started. Marv, Tennessee, Oklahoma. You know, Tennessee's been steamrolling people. I think they're scoring the most points in FBS right now. But who have they played? And Oklahoma has one of the better defenses in FBS. I think they have 10 turnovers so far this year. Should be a great matchup today in Norman. Big time challenge for Oklahoma as they come into the SEC, and this is their first SEC, challenge. What are your thoughts about the Tennessee Oklahoma game as far as their standing in the SEC?
yeah, this is a hard one to predict for me because I'm a little bit of a Tennessee hater, being a Bama boy. So I want to pick against Tennessee, and it's hard to really evaluate Tennessee just because of the talent, right? In terms of who they played, it's hard to evaluate where they really are. But from what you've seen, you would think that it would translate. I think going into Oklahoma is a tough place to play, absolutely. But remember, on the other side of the ball, we always talk about Tennessee's offense, but defensively, they've been lights out. They haven't given up a touchdown yet this year. They're only allowing 3 yards of play, and Oklahoma only averages 4 yards per rush. And I think their quarterback is a leading rusher on their team, and they've given up 9 sacks. So from a defensive to offensive standpoint for Tennessee, it looks like that they have, that within their favor in terms of stopping the run and making Oklahoma maybe one dimensional. On the other side of the ball, I think it's just going to be really, really hard for Oklahoma to stay in the game. I think the crowd will keep them in the game initially. But like I always talk about, and we always talk about on the show, Lee, they'll hang for a quarter or two. And then that depth and that speed and that and just the way that Tennessee spreads you out starts to wear on you. Remember, everybody thinks that Tennessee is pass happy. They're not. Everything that they do is predicated off the run, right? Dylan Sampson is a name a lot of you may not know, don't follow football as much, but he's averaging 7 yards per rush and he's got 9 touchdowns on the year. The quarterback gets all the attention, but Tennessee's really good in the run game. So, this isn't the Big 12 anymore for Oklahoma. I think Venerables is doing a good job. I think they're kind of turning the corner, but you're going to see in the SEC every game, every matchup is unlike any other conference in college football. So as much as I want to say I think this is going to be a game, I think Tennessee eventually just wears on Oklahoma. I'm going to go 42-17 Tennessee.
Wow, big time, big time, big time. Look, I agree with you on a couple of things, Marv. Oklahoma's offense hasn't done anything really. I mean, they only had two plays over 40, over 20 yards. Excuse me, over 40 yards this season. I mean, they're not an explosive offense. And to your point about the running game, Tennessee is averaging almost more running yards per game than Oklahoma is in total yards per game. So on paper, it looks like an absolute mismatch as far as Tennessee and Oklahoma. Now, that Oklahoma defense is legit, and I think that Oklahoma defense will keep the game close because Tennessee, when you haven't played anyone, you really don't know how good you are, and so you'll see that the Oklahoma defense is legit. They were legit last year. They're going to be legit this year. Brett Venables, a defensive expert, so I do think the game will be close. I'm not going to go 42-17 because I think that's too much of a spread. That's not really giving, I think, the Oklahoma defense the just due that they are. I think it'll be a close game. I think 28-24 Tennessee in a nail biter. Tennessee's favored by almost 7 points in this game, but I just don't see them running away. I think this is the time that the young quarterback sees some different coverages that he hadn't seen all year. I think they get after him in multiple blitz packages, and we'll see how good Nico is really. He's had a great season so far, but we're certainly going to see how good he is coming into this game because he's going to play a formidable defensive front and a defensive secondary, and we'll see if the Tennessee team is as good as advertised for this game.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. He hasn't played spectacular thus far this year, right? He's been good, but he hasn't lived up quite this year yet to what everybody talks about. And mind you, he's a good quarterback. I think he's gonna be excellent. But I agree with you. I suspect that you're going to see Oklahoma, take away the run because everything that Tennessee does is predicated on the run, getting you spread and kind of running it down your throat. So I suspect Venerables goes back to some of those Clemson days where they were really good at stopping the run and putting the ball in Nico's hands and say, hey, you got to beat us. You're going to see a lot of man coverage on the back end. So it's going to be an interesting chess match. I'm really intrigued by this game. But if you see Oklahoma and they have an inability to stop the run, forget about it. This game will be over before it even starts. So that's what I'm looking for about in the first 5 minutes on how good Oklahoma is going to be in stopping Tennessee from what they like to do on first and second down, which is run the football.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Spencer Parker, Tennessee, more aggressive team, got good D backs with the dog in them. Absolutely, SEC football, low level pro football. Yeah, it is. But the question I asked you, Marvin, I asked the people that are commentating, is Oklahoma a legit SEC team at this point as they make their transition? See, to me, that's the issue right there. Are they a legit SEC team as we've seen, Texas make that jump? You can look at Texas and you can say offensively, defensively, special teams, they're SEC quality, upper echelon SEC quality. My question to you and the audience is, have you seen enough of Oklahoma or them doing enough to say that they're a big time Oklahoma, no, big time SEC team? Sammy Campbell says Oklahoma will win. Nothing that I've seen thus far tells me that. Marv, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I don't think they're there yet. And again, we always talk about this with the upper echelon conferences, especially with the SEC. Everybody has elite and unique talent, right? The starting groups are always talented enough to compete with anybody, but it's the depth that gets you. And as you said with Texas, Texas has evaluated and they've built a lot of depth within that program. So when you're subbing guys in that are just as good as your starters, and that's what gets you in the SEC is the quality of depth. Now, NIL has changed that a little bit. They're not stockpiling talent the way that they used to. They're going other places to play immediately, but it's still, man. Texas and Georgia, Bama. The depth is just what gets you, and I don't think Oklahoma is quite there yet with their depth, and I think that's what you're going to see. That's why I say a quarter and a half. If they're stopping the run, you'll see a close game. But I really just think Tennessee, with that depth and the experience that they have, Heupel is a really good play caller. He going back to Oklahoma where he played quarterback. I just think you're going to see Tennessee ultimately run away with this.
Yeah. Final thing I'll say as far as Tennessee's defense, like I said, not haven't been really tested this year. Can their secondary, and even though Oklahoma hasn't threw the ball all over the park, can their secondary hold up? Spencer Parker made a good point about the secondary of Tennessee. Can they hold up? And again, this is a big test for Tennessee all around because the level of competition jumping this high, we'll see if they're a legit contender in the SEC. With this year being there's no conference, it's the best of the best, and the winners really getting the opportunity to participate possibly in the college football playoffs. The big thing about this year, you can lose one or two games and still get into the college football playoffs. So this is a huge game for Tennessee as their schedule gets tougher and tougher as we go on. Sammy Campbell, Lee, we're watching the resurgence of the Razorbacks. They will hang 30 points on any team. Yeah, I like what the Razorbacks are doing, except Georgia. I like what the Razorbacks offense is doing under Bobby Petrino. But to Mar's point, depth is the thing with Arkansas. Can they, when as the season progresses and injuries happen and you have to spell playing against these big boys, can they continue to do that? Recycle Me says Tennessee will win. So, Marv, that's my thing. That's going to be a good game. It's going to be a good game to watch. I think we'll learn a lot about both programs as they come into the game tonight, and so we'll definitely recap that. I want to turn my attention now, Marv, to Florida State. Big loss last week to Memphis. Memphis came in. They were clearly the better team. They were clear. There was no issues with who was the better team. They forced turnovers. The defense didn't let Ugliangale do much of anything. And Memphis probably should have won the game by more than they wanted. My question to you, Marv, is there's been a lot of talk out of Florida State about Mike Norvell's contract, about Mike Norvell staying there as FSU's coach. Look, it's a $65 million buyout. They signed Mike Norvell to an 8-year, $84 million extension before last year. It's a $65 million buyout, but we know this. With all the money that's thrown around with the CFP, you see these teams saying, I don't care what the buyout is. We want to get to that playoff because there's so much money that's going to be generated. Two questions, Marv. One, do you think that Florida State will move on? One. And two, is Deion Sanders the top candidate if Florida State moves on?
Yeah, it's going to depend on a lot of things. It's going to depend on how Florida State looks moving forward. At this point, I think Norvell has to make a choice about Uiagalelei. I think it's time to probably move on from him. We've seen him 5 years now in college football. You know what he is, and I think you just got to try to find a way to get a spark with this team. And I don't know if he's it, right? Is Deion the first choice? Sure, but I think Deion has to also get to a bowl game in Colorado. He has to show improvement with that program. It's a perfect storm with Norvell, underachieving the way that he has. And boy, what a difference a day makes when you have a great quarterback in Jordan Travis and you kind of come back down to earth. It makes you realize just how great and how important quarterback play is in football, right? But it's a perfect storm for Deion. His son will leave, be probably a top 5 pick along with Travis Hunter. I think it would create the perfect storm for him to get there, but he's got to win at Colorado. He's got to get them at least to a bowl game. He can't have a losing season at Colorado and then come in and replace Norvell, who had a losing season at Florida State. I just don't know how much momentum you'll have for that in terms of Deion. He is an alum, but you got to win football games. That's the bottom line in this business. And that's $65 million nothing. I think you know that, Lee. I think that if they could find the right person and get the right person in the helm, if he ends this season really, really poorly on the trajectory that they're on now, yeah, they'll buy him out and they'll bring Deion or whoever the next best thing will be in there and keep it moving, because in today's college football, there's no time to really build. It's win now mentality, especially with NIL and all the stuff going on. They'll buy his ass out quick and get somebody else in.
Yeah. I agree with you on certain points, Marv. I would like to see Colorado get to a bowl. If they got to a bowl, irregardless of what Norvell does this year, there's going to be talk about replacing him. If Colorado gets there, because you made a great point that the quarterback matters, but also the quarterback matters in how you call the game, right? And Norvell is supposed to be this offensive guru, right? That you can, he took Memphis, he came that was his forte, offense. And you see that he's a shell of himself about getting Florida State's offense off the ground. Quarterback matters, play calling matters as well. So the other thing that I'll say about Deion, it's the recruiting base that would be such a boon for Florida State if he went there. And that's why 6 games, I think that's the demarcation line. I agree with that, Marv, if he can get Colorado to 6, because think of all the recruits that would head back to Florida State in the Sunshine State. I'm talking about just from the state of Florida there. I mean, that's one of the top 2 best fertile grounds for high school athletes in the country, and think about what he brings to the table as far as recruiting. And so I think he's at the top of the list. I think, look, 6 wins, I think it's a foregone conclusion. Now, if FSU goes on a run and wins out, that's a different story. That puts them at 9-3. But I don't see Baylor. I don't see Notre Dame. They might even lose to NC State. I don't know. So I don't see Florida State getting past 6-6, Marv. 6-6 is not going to cut it for Florida State this year. And I think that buyout energy is going to start to come more and more and more. And like I said, if Deion gets to 6 wins, that's going to happen. Deion's buyout after this year, Marv, it's about 20, right around $20 million. That's chump change for Florida State. And I think you'll see as Florida State loses more games, that talk is going to ramp up. And I could see it happening, but I agree with you. 6 wins is a must for Colorado if that's going to happen for Deion Sanders. And let me say, last thing I'll say, all of this talk about Deion wanting to stay, he loves Colorado. Look, I could hear the conversation now. I'm a Florida State alum. I love the state of Florida. I got to give back to my alma mater. That's a no-brainer. I like what you said. I think Deion to Florida State has a lot of juice.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a logical choice, but there's some other tiers in this conversation though that a lot of people haven't talked about, and I know we don't see quite eye to eye when it comes to Deion and his recruiting abilities, but he hasn't really built a foundation in Colorado. He's kind of more planted a tree. He hasn't really planted seeds, and what I mean by that is you plant seeds in terms of some of your younger guys that start to build a foundation of a program. And I get it. He probably had to do that because Colorado was so bad. Norvell is a pretty good recruiter, and they're pretty high on the rankings right now in terms of commits that they have coming into Florida State next year. So he's done a good job on the recruiting trail. What does that look like if you decide to buy him out? And those are all factors that kind of come into play. And the factor is, like a lot of people say, is Deion a program builder? And that becomes the question. But I still think it's going to be a no-brainer, because where else do you go at that point if you buy him off of 65? You got to make a splash. You got to bring prime time back. I just think it's a no-brainer for them. But you're right. 6 games, he wins a bowl. Florida State continues to underachieve. It's a conversation.
Yeah. The recruiting base, to me, with Florida State, always going to recruit itself because Florida State's a name. I mean, it's a name, and it's a big name, and they've always. I mean, Willie Taggart recruited 5
I mean,
stars.
they haven't. I mean, you could say that, but the results don't warrant people saying that. Like,
but Taggart, think about it. The players that Norvell won with last year and the year before that, Willie Taggart recruited. He recruited those guys. Those were 5-star athletes that he recruited, 4- and 5-star athletes that he recruited. So the recruiting base at Florida State is Florida State. That the tradition behind it, and you put a name like Deion Sanders walking into these parents, and the fact that he has connections with all of those high school coaches, and he's really hired people that can recruit the state of Florida. I like it. I like it a lot. Let me get a couple of. Colorado plays Baylor today. Baylor is trash. Colorado should hang 45. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. Let's not down Baylor. They're a good football team. Deion Sanders, if you tried, I agree with you. Recycle me. He wanted Florida State early on, but they wanted him to possibly come in and be the defensive coordinator, defensive backs coach. Deion wanted the head coach. I think that revisionist history is going to play well for Deion. And if Norvell loses one more game, he's gone. Norvell see the side. I agree with all those things. So we're going to switch gears real quick to talk about Baylor and Colorado today. Marv, what does it say to you if Baylor wins the game about where Colorado is, and on the flip side, What does it say to you if Colorado wins the game about Colorado today against Baylor in Boulder?
Well, I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, Colorado should win this football game. This isn't a, if Baylor wins this football game at Colorado tonight, that's a referendum on Colorado football. I mean, they should win this game. They're better in pretty much every position. And mind you, there's a couple things here that I kind of get into the weeds with some of this stuff, but Baylor played Air Force last week, and we all know that Air Force is a really, really tough team to play because they play football kind of like the traditional way that we all kind of know football. They're a tough team to play against because they're very physical, and it usually takes a couple of weeks to kind of get out of the mode of playing a team like that. So the worst game that they could have is probably against Colorado, who is leading the nation in attempted passes in Colorado with the high altitude, which does play a factor. I don't know if many of you ever been to Colorado and participated in sports, but I have. It does matter, right? So I think it's set up for Colorado to really be able to do what they need to do to win this football game. And if you're taking the next steps of a program, these are defining games that say, hey, we're here, we've arrived, and we're going to beat the teams that we should beat. Now, there's a couple other things. It's supposed to be rainy tonight in Boulder, right? And that affects passing, right? Baylor has the number one rated passing defense in the country. They're only allowing 75 yards passing a game. Now, granted, they played Air Force one of those games, but these will start to be the games where the stats kind of tell you whether teams are real or whether they phony, right? When you start to get into conference play, then all of your vulnerabilities and your shortcomings start to get exposed. So if Colorado is who we all, well, not me, but you and everybody else that are Colorado fans, if they are who we say they are, this is a game that they should take control of from the beginning, and they should never look back, and they should really win this game easily. But if they're not able to run the football, which we know that they can't, it's a rainy night in Colorado. Dave Aranda, now remember, he's good defensively, okay? He's one of the better defensive coordinators. He's the head coach now, but he's one of the best defensive game planners that we have out there. I want to say Colorado win the football game, but there's something in me that just says that if it's sloppy and if it's a nasty night, Baylor runs the football really, really well. They got about 2 or 3 running backs that can pound the football. It could get dicey for Colorado. So I'm on the fence. With my Colorado hate, I'm going to go ahead and pick Baylor. I'm going to go 24-21 Baylor to pull this game out because I just think that the weather is going to play a factor and the game is going to get ugly.
So, thank you for that. But you didn't answer the question. What does it mean for Colorado's program if they win? What does it mean? What does it mean for?
It doesn't mean it. It means that you're taking the steps that you said that you could take at the beginning of the season, right? These are games that you're supposed to win. So it doesn't really mean much because you should win this football game. If you lose, it means that your program, like I said, is regressing because these are games that you are supposed to win. Are you not supposed to win this game? On paper, should Colorado, right? So it shouldn't mean anything. So you don't get a gold star for beating Baylor tonight because you should. But if you lose the game, it's a referendum on the direction of your program, and that's just the way that this type stuff goes. And too much is given, much is expected. Deion talked that talk. Tonight is another opportunity to walk the walk to show that your program is progressing.
Hey, recycle me. That great comment. I see the hate coming out. Look, he tried to keep it in. He tried to, but he just couldn't do it. He just couldn't say that if Colorado wins tonight, they're taking the steps to where the program is coming into play. They'll be 3-1, and that's a great look at 3-1. They're winning the games they're supposed to. He couldn't say that, recycle me. He tried to keep it in.
I just said that. I just said that. Recycle me. It's no hate. It can't be hate when I'm spitting facts. You just don't like what I'm saying, so you call me a hater. But everything that I said is factual. So maybe that's more about you than it is about me.
Yeah, it's easy.
Maybe that's the hater in you.
You see how he comes out? He does it so great. I mean, he should really be a politician because he didn't say it. He tried to keep the hate in, right? But it had to come out. It had to come out. If they win tonight, they're on the trajectory that they should be. They lost to a very good Nebraska team. They lost a game that they didn't play well in a game that was a tough place to play and everything. But if they win tonight, go to 3-1, they're right where they should be as they go into the Big 12. Look, the Baylor has a good secondary, but they played, like to your point, they played Air Force. Air Force probably threw the ball 3 or 4 times the whole game. So we're not going, that skews their secondary, but they haven't played a set of receivers like they're going to play against Colorado. And even though it's raining, Marv, let me say this. The offense has the advantage in a rainy game. And Colorado may not be able to run the ball, but they damn sure going to be able to throw the ball. And that's going to be an issue where I think Colorado is able to move the football. It's going to be a sloppy game. So protection, you should be able to pass block. And I think this is a game where Colorado wins. And I think I need for them to win decisively tonight to be on a pattern to say we're arriving exactly at the right time that we should.
So all you Colorado fans, if Colorado doesn't win tonight, then what does it mean?
Well, if they don't win, I'll answer that. If they don't win, they're taking a step back. Look, I'm a realist. I don't come on here and sugarcoat anything. They have to win the game tonight. They're playing at home. They're playing Baylor. They should win the game. Rain, snow, shine, whatever, go out and execute. I like what I saw in Colorado's defense last week. The passing game for Colorado, as long as he gets some protection, it's going to be lights out. So yeah,
well, listen. Just like we said that you can't really take a lot from Baylor playing Air Force. We can't take a lot from Colorado playing Colorado State either. Colorado, if you're gonna say everybody else trash, you got to say Colorado State trash. Okay, so you can't really take much from that, right? We can't take much from that. But like you said, the opening of the Big 12. Now we're gonna really kind of find out. And but again, across the board, Colorado from a talent perspective is better. And we all know that. So let's not act like Baylor should really be in this football game because Colorado is better and way better at the positions that really decide football games, right? So if they don't win tonight, it is a colossal failure and is a regression in this program. And I can't wait to come on here and tell you, I told you so.
Yeah, I know you want to recycle me. I know he wants to. That he's living for that tonight. Don't worry about it. But it's not going to happen. Not going to happen. I like Colorado tonight. 28-17 over Baylor tonight. I think Colorado gets out fast. I think throwing the football, if it's a sloppy night, that to me it bodes well for Colorado passing game. Like I said, the offense know where they're going. The defense is going to be reactionary. So I like the passing offense of Colorado tonight. And look, I think Colorado's offensive line took some steps last week, and we'll see if they continue to take some steps this week. I like the change up in the offensive line. So I look for Colorado to get a win, go to 3-1, continue down the path of getting to that 6-7 win total, as we said they would. And it's going to be a great night. And I look forward to talking to our guy about this. Marv, you're going super hating in a hater mode. Yeah, everybody's saying it, Marv. I mean, it shows. I mean, you can't say anything good about Colorado without bashing them in the next sentence. So we know what Marv's about right now. He wants Colorado to lose so he can say, I told you so. There are others out there that want him to lose as well. But I like where Coach Prime is going.
If we go back through the history of this show, though, I've been pretty spot on with my predictions. So, we need to start keeping a tracker in terms of scores and outcomes because I've been pretty spot on. So as much as you want to call me a hater, you can't say that I don't know what I'm talking about, right? You just don't like what I'm saying. So it's okay. I'm built for that. I got thick skin. I'm from Detroit originally. We know how to roll. But you can't dispute the fact that my predictions have been pretty spot on, and I will be spot on again tonight.
If I'm not mistaken, you predicted Colorado State last week, so you're not Nostradamus.
Yeah, that was the one. That was the one.
Hey, let's change, but it's good conversation, y'all. Keep the comments coming. Definitely like, subscribe. We need you guys to tell a friend about the show. Please do that. Comment on anything that we're talking about today. Marv, one of your homeboys from the University of Alabama, one of your homeboys got benched this week for the Carolina Panthers, Bryce Young. I got a couple of questions for you in the audience. One, is the benching warranted? And let me say this before I say warranted. 18 games into his NFL career, right? The number one pick overall is 18, 19 games. He's played 2 this year. I think he was hurt for 1. 18 games, enough to evaluate where Bryce Young is? That's the first question I want to ask you, Mark, because to me, I think it's a little premature. I think you have to let him play out the kinks. Yeah, his confidence is lost, but it doesn't bode well when 1 week the coach says one day, not 1 week, we're firmly behind Bryce Young, and then the next day he benches him. That tells me you're not in charge of what you're doing as the head coach of Carolina. So that's one thing. And then the second question is this benching a precursor to Bryce Young not being in Carolina next year? What are your thoughts, Marv?
Well, I'll touch on that last one first. Yeah, I think his days in Carolina are done. I mean, I don't know. I don't really know how you bring him back. And you mentioned 18 games. Yeah, he's played 18 games in a Carolina Panthers uniform. He's also had 3 different head coaches and probably 2 or 3 different offensive coordinators in 18 games. So if you talk about inept from an organizational standpoint, and also he got drafted and played for the guy who was very outspoken in the fact that he never wanted to draft him in the first place, which was Frank Wright. So he came into a situation where he wasn't going to win, in the long run. Number 2, remember everybody, you tried being a number 1 draft choice, a number 1 pick, and the future kind of weighed on your shoulders and have a 34-year-old number 1 wide receiver, because that's what he basically had last year in Adam Thielen. So I don't know how many people Adam Thielen were getting open on last year at 34 years old, but I can tell you not many. Has he regressed? Absolutely. So I don't think the benching is a bad thing, because if you watch him outside of just some of the organizational pieces and some of the shortcomings that they put around him, he's regressed from a quarterback standpoint. Right? You can't really kind of deny that. There are some things that are really, really glaring in his game, but I think a lot of that also becomes from a lack of confidence. Anybody who's played sports, Sammy, I heard you the man. We all know this, right? When that confidence is gone, you start to question everything. You start to see things that aren't there. You start to question, are you really, valued the way that you used to be? So that confidence is a big thing, and he's completely lost it. So I do think his days are done in Carolina, Lee. I don't think it's a bad thing that he's being benched. I think he needs a fresh start with an organization that can play to his strengths, which are processing information. He's never had the strongest arm. He's never been the most athletic, but he's very, very smart. And he's got to get in a situation which allows him to be that. I don't know. It looks like Baker Mayfield and your guy in Minnesota doing pretty well, and they were called busts when they were in Carolina. So maybe it is the organization, but he has regressed. So one more thing I want to say before you got, because I know you got some more on this. Are we seeing, is this more of a microcosm of the financial system in the NFL, right? Remember when you had guys that got drafted early as quarterbacks, they were always in positions to sit and learn, right? Now, with the way the contracts are structured, you need to know now, right? You need to know now if this guy is the future. And if you don't put enough around him, it's really, really hard for them to succeed, because you want to win while he's still on that rookie deal, because after that rookie deal is done, you gotta give the mortgage for him in terms of a contract. So we're seeing Caleb Williams is struggling. Like, he was supposed to be the next best thing. We're watching him struggle. Notice in New England, they've sat their first round pick. He's not playing. There's a few others that have sat and aren't playing. So is the financial system kind of the issue here when it comes to quarterbacks and putting guys into positions that aren't ready really to play at that level? And yes, Sammy, he is 5'10", but he's been 5'10" all his life. I mean, that ain't gonna change. I mean, that ain't gonna change anything. So,
A couple of things, Marv. I agree with you on a couple of points. Organizationally, and I think Recycle said this well about the organization is trash, and he's had multiple offensive coordinators. Look, football is about your organization setting all of your players up for success. And you see it. Look at Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix, right? Cousins is playing, Penix is setting. Even though Penix is pushing Cousins, that's the ideal situation you want. So I give Atlanta a lot of kudos for drafting Penix for the future and getting Cousins for the now. That was a smart move. People kind of yelled at it, screamed at it. Why are they doing that? Because it was smart for them to do it. You can get out of Cousins' deal in 2 years, and you have Penix there sitting ready to take over on a rookie contract with 2 years and an option year left. That's ideal for these quarterbacks coming into the league because all of them are struggling. Jaden Daniels is having a pretty good year running the football, and he's probably the one that's played the best so far of the rookies, but all of them are struggling. So to your point, Marv, yeah, the system is flawed, and until you get back to the old way of developing these quarterbacks, you're going to get this trash that you're getting from these quarterbacks, these first-year quarterbacks, and all of these things. To your point, and Anthony Richardson is great point, Recycle Me. Anthony Richardson in his second year. The guy is struggling mightily. He can throw the deep ball. He can make all the throws, but reading defense.
Well, he was trash at Florida, though. So let's be real now. He was trash at Florida. So I wouldn't put him in that conversation.
Well, but he's struggling, Marvin. So development, that we're talking about development of these young quarterbacks is issue. But let me ask you this, Marv. What does you said he's smart. What does Bryce Young do well? This is my problem with Bryce Young at this point as an NFL quarterback. He's roughly the same size as Kyler Murray, right? But his skill set, Kyler Murray can run. He has a rocket arm. He's elusive. Teams have to game plan against him for running and passing. I just don't know what Bryce Young is. At Alabama, he was accurate, but he was throwing to wide open players a lot of the time. He was accurate. He processed well, but a lot of these quarterbacks process well and smart. What is he in the NFL? That's what my problem with Bryce Young is. I do think you still have to give him more than 18 games to prove it. But what is Bryce Young in the NFL? What does he bring to the table? And that's my problem with Bryce Young, the player. I just think they haven't given him enough time to prove it out until you make valid points. Stealing your main receiver, the offense hadn't been built, and for your coach, your first-year coach, to give up on you in your second game of the season, that's bad. And so Canales should have stuck with him and rode with him for a little while longer and not benched him like he did and waffled one day after he said he supported him.
Sammy, I really need you to go look at the tape on Anthony Richardson at Florida, because that statement that you just made, I roll with you with a lot of stuff, but I need you to go back and watch tape of Anthony Richardson at Florida, okay? He only threw on one side of the field. He was a one read quarterback. But to go back to Bryce, go back to Alabama and watch what he did. See, a lot of people don't understand this. Bill O'Brien was his offensive coordinator, and people don't realize that Bryce Young had complete autonomy in that offense. He called basically every play at the line of scrimmage, and a lot of people don't realize that. So what was great about Bryce was his ability to read and his ability to lead, and he was very accurate. His wide receiver group was good, but they weren't elite like Tua. They weren't elite like Tua's was, where he was throwing to guys like they was in the ocean. Okay, so he struggled at Bama. He got sacked a lot. Bill O'Brien was a terrible offensive coordinator. So what got him drafted number one was his ability to process and his accuracy with the football, and the fact that he was a really, really good leader. And that's some things that you can't really teach. And Carolina put him in a position to where none of that was in place for him to be able to do, right? And then when you're changing head coaches, you're changing offensive coordinators, you're changing philosophies, you're going to struggle as a rookie quarterback in this league. Now, again, I don't know what he does well at this point. I don't think he knows what he does well at this point, but he's got to get in a situation that plays to his strengths. And Carolina did none of that for him. So it's hard to have a real evaluation on him at this point. I saw what he was at Bama. I saw him win a Heisman Trophy. I saw how good he was, but he's a shell of what he was when he came out of college. And that's unfortunate because he's a really good kid.
Yeah, he's making really terrible decisions though at Carolina. I mean, throwing in the double and triple coverage, and like you said, his confidence in shot. But if he's a processor like that, I don't see him making those terrible throws that he does. My problem with him is not overly mobile. He moves in the pocket to throw, and I like that about him. He's always looking downfield to throw the football. I like that about him. I like a quarterback that does it. But man, it's a struggle with some of the decisions he's making. But still, in saying all of that, 2 games into the regular season is not enough time to bench this young man. If you're a new coach, Marv, if you're coming in and changing the entire structure, the system, he didn't play that much in the preseason, and the preseason is not a microcosm of what you're going to see in the regular season anyway. So to me, it makes no sense to bench him at this point. Let him play 4 games, 5 games, and then go. Because the reality of the situation is you're not going to the playoffs. You're probably going to be pick one or two. So you have to know what you have in Bryce Young, and he's never going to get that now by not playing. So to me, I just think the coach bowed down to some of the pressures of the GM. The owner wanted him, so I think it's more of the other people in the building and benched him and sold them on he needs to watch. I don't think you ever get better by watching people play.
Well, you do at that position because there's a lot of subtleties in terms of playing quarterback. And I think anybody who sat on the professional level, just look at Patrick Mahomes. I mean, he's a great example of that. I think anybody that'll tell you that has a quarterback in front of them that they're able to watch and watch how they are professionals, it's a different level. I think you get some benefit in that. But I do want to break something down that you said about you don't know what Bryce Young is doing, where he's some of the throws that he's making, it looks like he doesn't process information well. There is something that's called pressing, right? When there's the weight of the world is on you and you're expected to be something that you have not been, you start to press as a quarterback and you probably would make throws that you normally wouldn't make because you want to show that there's value in what they put into you as a number one draft choice, right? So let's take another quarterback, for example, that you say that about. Somebody who has a great regular season, somebody who breaks records during the regular season, somebody who's in the MVP race in the regular season. And then you get to the playoffs and he becomes a completely different quarterback, right? He becomes a quarterback that you really can't recognize. He becomes a quarterback that makes throws that he never made during the regular season. And why is that? It's because there's pressure. It's because there's expectation that's been put upon you to do things that you need to do to get that team to the next step. And I think we all know I'm talking about Dak Prescott.
You talking
So
about Joe Burrow?
there is a precedence to this, right? There is a precedence to people who start to feel pressure and they start to do things that are very uncharacteristic of how they've been in the past. And your boy is a prime example. He's great during the regular season, and then he gets into the playoffs and he's a shell of himself. And you can shake your head all you want, but the results don't lie. So y'all can call me a hater, but it still is a results-oriented business. And his results are no Super Bowls, two playoff wins, and a quarterback rating that is nothing like it is in the regular season. So in what you're saying about Bryce, you can juxtapose that to almost every other quarterback in the NFL who a lot is expected and they come up really, really short. And you have a great example in Dallas.
Dak has showed he's a top 5 quarterback. Bryce has showed that he's below a top bottom quarterback, and he has to get
nobody.
better.
Don't change the argument, Lee. The argument wasn't about he's a top 5 quarterback. The argument is about results. That's what the argument was about.
That A on your hat excuse your judgment on things, and we all know this. We know that A, because come on, man. Bryce, he has to process. He's throwing into triple coverage, Marv. He can't do that.
You're not answering my question. You're not answering my question.
I totally disagree with what you're saying. I haven't seen that from Dak Prescott at all. I see Dak Prescott as always being the quarterback that he is. Hey, sometimes his players around him are not rising to the occasion, but I see Dak Prescott as being a great quarterback year in and year out. Whether Dallas wins a game or not, like last year's loss to Green Bay, had nothing to do with Dak Prescott. It had everything to do with the defense. And so
he didn't throw interceptions in that game?
Dak Prescott.
He didn't throw interceptions? He didn't throw interceptions.
Every quarterback throws interception. Sammy Campbell, you're a hater, and you're a jealous hater, and you're jealous of the Cowboys. That is the main thing that I know from you, from knowing you for years. So you're a hater, irregardless of anything about Dallas. But great points, Marv. We got to see about Bryce. I feel bad for him that they benched him, but we'll see. Hopefully he'll get back in there. And look, Andy Dalton is what he is. He's a veteran, so he's going to make some throws, but he's going to throw some interceptions. And at some point, Carolina has to get Bryce back in there to see what they have. So we'll turn the page on this. Our next topic, I want to get into a little basketball here, Marv. An extension for Joel Embiid. Marv, $193 million on a 3-year extension for Joel Embiid. Now, look, Embiid last year, 34 points, 11 rebounds, almost 2 blocks a game. Hey, that's a great season. Now, we can't talk bad about his talent. I mean, he's a talented guy, but look, the stat that bothers me about Embiid, of a possible 801 games, Marv, he's played 433. I mean, he's only played in 54% of the possible games that he could play in 8 years. And to give him, $193 million extension, What does it say about Philadelphia? First of all, Marv, do you think he's going to live up to that extension? Because he's a tweaked knee away from being out for 2 months. I mean, I don't know what be happening to Joel. Somehow you have to get in better shape than you are because this is ridiculous. Because when you're on the court, you're super, but you just don't stay on the court, and you always get hurt at the most inopportune time. So, Marv, what does the extension say about Philly's belief in Joel first? That's one I want to ask you. But do you think it's sustainable with his injury history?
I mean, they're paying for the talent. I mean, that's basically what it is. I mean, it's what the market demands, and they're paying him for his talent. Now, I think all the points that you made are spot on, Lee. I can't really add much more to that because you're right. He doesn't stay healthy. So the return on investment in terms of him as a player isn't great. But when he does play, he's probably one of the most dominant players in the league, and you can't say he's not. So I think they're banking on the fact that maybe they find lightning in a bottle with him, and he finds a way to stay healthy, and they're paying him as such, right? So I don't know. I don't know what's in Embiid's head, but I'm with you. I can't understand why you can't get yourself, in better shape. It takes you half an NBA season to really kind of get into shape. But the damage has really been done because we all know as you gain weight, and especially being the size that he is, like injuries occur at that size when you're carrying a lot of weight. And he never comes into the season in shape ever. So it makes you wonder about his craft and wonder about his dedication to his craft. But yeah, I mean, it's what the market warrants, Lee. There's nothing we can really say about it. They put pieces around him. They got Maxey done. They put pieces around him for them to make a yeah, exactly. Paul George. They put the pieces around to make a run at the championship. You had to pay him. This is all or nothing for Philly at this point. So I get it, but I think history tells you that he won't be healthy, and you're hoping that you'll have enough in Maxey and George to right the ship or to hold the ship steady until he kind of comes back from whatever injury he's going to have next, because history tells us that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, Sammy Campbell, Joel Embiid is like little Debbie snack cakes. Come on.
Yeah.
So Marv, can Maxey and George and some of and I think they had a very good offseason. I really do. I think Philly had a very good offseason. Can they propel the Sixers, because we know he's going to get hurt. We know he's going to sit out games. Can they propel the Sixers to a place in the playoff positioning that can set them up for a title run? I think that's the main question right there that everybody has to answer. Can they do that? And if they can do that, and look, and get to the NBA, the Eastern Conference Finals and possibly a final, then the money is certainly warranted. But can they do that? Can they win enough games, or do they still toil down at the 5th and 6th spot to where they don't have home court advantage in the first and second round of playoffs?
Yeah, I think you just answered. Yeah, that's where they're going to be because again, history tells us Paul George, he's the same. He'll get hurt at the most inopportune times for an organization or a franchise. And let's just be real. He's been tantalizing us with this talent for 13, 15 years now, right? Every year it's going to be Paul George's year to take that next step to be he is what he is at this point. So he's good enough to be a second or third option, but he's also one that you can't trust, just like Embiid. Embiid is a number one all day, every day, but you can't trust him. The only guy I trust on that team is Maxey. The only one that I trust to get maximum effort from and being healthy and available is Maxey, and he's not good enough alone to put Philly into a position to compete in the Eastern Conference with what the Knicks and Boston, amongst some other teams, have done. So I think you're going to see pretty much the same because both of those are going to be hurt at some point in the year, and it's going to kill them.
Who's the second best team in the East, Marv, between Philly and New York? Because Philly gets hurt a lot too. I mean, those players. I mean, Julius Randle. Hell, he probably got a place in an award in New York in the hospital. He gets hurt every year. Every year he gets hurt. Last year was like a mass unit for the Knicks. So who's the best? Who's the second best team behind Boston? We give it up to Boston, the number one team. Who's the second best team behind Boston? Recycle me, Milwaukee. Thank you. That's a good choice. Even though, Marv, you know how I feel on Dame time. Dame time is just like Miller time. I don't drink beer, so I'm like, I don't know about all that. But who's the second? But that is a good choice to throw Milwaukee in there. Who's the second best team in the East in the NBA?
I mean, you got to go with the Knicks. I think that they've done enough to put themselves in that conversation, and I can trust Jalen Brunson, and I don't trust Julius Randle. But hell, they made the run without Julius damn Randle because he's never healthy. But I can trust what I'm gonna get from Brunson every night and some of those other pieces in New York, and they were all injured going into the playoffs last year, and still made it interesting in terms of the playoff run. I just trust New York more than I trust anybody in Philly, and I damn sure don't trust Milwaukee. They got a lot of roster turnover. I'm with Lee. I'm not a Dame. I like Dame's talent, but I don't think he's a good fit with Giannis. I just don't. I think he's a ball dominant guard that has to have a lot of shots to be effective and to make an impact on the game. And that coupled with Giannis isn't a good match, right? So,
I
and I
agree.
think you saw that, and I think you saw that with Milwaukee getting rid of coaches. Like it's not a good fit. So right now it's Boston and then New York, and then probably Philly, Milwaukee. There's some other teams that might make some noise, but I think the Knicks are the number 2 team right
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I just think, but a healthy Giannis give Milwaukee always a chance. I mean, a
now.
healthy Giannis, but to your point, Marv, what is the pecking order, right? What is the pecking order? And I'll say this about Milwaukee. Giannis, you have to be the man on that team. See, last year, I think Giannis was so happy to think that he had Damian Lillard, that Lillard was going to bring all of this to Milwaukee, that he didn't run that team. You're the man on that team, Giannis, and you have to act like it. You have to command the ball like it. And if Lillard gets hot on certain games, feed him while he's hot. But Giannis, you have to be the man, and you have to stay healthy. I think that's the Milwaukee blueprint. And if they don't get that, and you depending on Lillard, I've never seen it, Marv. We can talk all this stuff about Dame. I've never seen it yet. And until I see it, I'm gonna have the same opinion of Dame Lillard that I have. Great player, to your point, great talent. I haven't seen the winning. Haven't seen the winning. We're going to go into our last topic. I definitely want to get this one out. This is one I really want to get out before we close today. And guys, thanks for all the comments. This is our last topic, so I need everybody to chime in on this. So October the 22nd, the NBA season kicks off. We're about a month away from the NBA season. And look, the G League season doesn't start till November. So there's a very strong possibility, and there's been a lot of things in the media about Lebron and Bronny playing together on opening night. And Marv, I think that would be a great thing for the NBA in general. I think it would be great for the league to see history being made. What are your thoughts about Bronny? One, do you think it'll happen? And would he play with LeBron on the opening night? And two, what does it say and what does it mean for Bronny's development and the Lakers' plans for Bronny?
Yeah, I don't even know how to I don't even know what this conversation is about because I mean, of course he's gonna play on opening night. I mean, he got drafted in the second round for no other reason besides the fact that he was LeBron's son, and he got a guaranteed deal. So of course he's gonna play on the opening night. That's what they drafted him for. To have a first father son duo and catching a pass from his son or catching a oop from his son or whatever the
It'll be
case may
beautiful.
be. Of course that's going to happen. And of course he'll be on the Laker roster until the G League starts and then he'll be down in the G League where he'll finish the season. I mean, that's pretty much what it is. He's a developmental player at best and I get it. All of you talk about Bronny's this, he's that, he's going to be whatever. He's a developmental player as best. And you need go no further than his damn head coach. His head coach said he's a developmental talent at this point of his career. So that's just the way. That's what it is, right? So I love it. I think it'll make for great television, and it'll give the Lakers what they were looking for, the attention and being in the news and all the stuff that they want to be. But as the season progresses, Bronny will be in the G League, and he'll be a developmental talent that we will see. And there's nothing wrong with that because that's where he needs to be. He's not ready for the NBA in the 82 game season to be a contributor at this point, and the Lakers see him as such. So I like it. I'm okay with it. I mean, the Lakers still gonna suck. They don't have enough to do. They don't have enough to get out of the Western Conference. So why not? Your best player is 40 years old. So I mean, come on.
This guy here, man. I mean, his hates Bronny. No, what? Know thyself, know truth. We appreciate you, brother, for subscribing. Please tell your friends that we appreciate it. Give us your thoughts on the Bronny and LeBron opening night playing together. I'd love to know your thoughts on it. But look, let's say this, Mark. You keep telling me that The guys, he deserves to be in the G League. Let's see what Bronny's done. Look. It's one of 82 games. If Bronny plays 15 games with the Lakers main squad, it'll be great for him to get his feet wet. And I agree with you on this. Marv, there's nothing wrong with him playing with LeBron on opening night. There's nothing wrong with him getting run with the Lakers periodically throughout the season, them bringing him up, sitting him down to see what you have. We know he's going to play good defense. We know that he's a heady player. We know what we want to see if he can hit the three-point shot. Has he worked enough to be a knockdown three-point shooter? If he does that, then he can fit what the Lakers are trying to do. Very athletic young kid, very, very, very heady, smart, basketball intelligent, basketball IQ. So there's no downsides to this. And Marv, quit saying that he got drafted simply because LeBron is his dad. That's not true. The man has upside as a basketball, as an NBA player, and let's develop him. But there's nothing wrong with him playing opening night with LeBron and continue to develop like any other second-round draft pick will as a Laker. There's nothing wrong with that.
So let me be clear once again, because everybody seems to misconstrue what I say. I have no problem with Bronny being on the Lakers. I have no problem with Bronny being drafted. Again, I wish LeBron James would have been my daddy and got me drafted. Okay, but from high school to college, statistically, what he's shown, film, all the things that are supposed to matter have shown that he's not NBA ready and he's not an NBA talent. So you can dispute that all you like, but that is just actually factual. There's nothing that he did at USC that would make you think that it translates to the next level. Everybody freaking heady. Everybody's athletic in Division I college basketball. Everybody has some of those attributes, and they don't get drafted and are physically more gifted and are better shooters. He's never been a good three-point shooter. He's never been a volume three-point shooter. He's never been a knockdown shooter. He showed you that in high school. He showed you that in college. He showed you that in the summer league. So now all of a sudden he's going to get into the NBA, I guess, with a little bit more experience and turn into that. Maybe he does, but he's not that at this point right now. And again, there's something about cohesion that matters in the NBA. He's not going to be going up and down and coming in and getting minutes in the league. When you get 20, 25 games in, you start to develop rotation. You start to develop matchups. That's not the way that this works. And cohesion is big in the NBA and it's big in basketball. So forget that notion as well. He'll be in the G League. That's where he's going to toil for the whole year, except for the beginning until the G League starts, where we're going to have some feel-good stories about him and his daddy on the court together. But after that, rest assured, this is about winning, and he don't give them a chance to win.
He's on the 15-man roster, Mar. He's on the roster. He's on the main roster. So we think he's going to toil. I don't think they have plans for him to toil in the G League. I really don't. So we're going to see. It's going to be a great story.
Well, his head coach said that he did. His head coach, J.J. Redick, said it in an interview. He's a developmental player that will spend the majority of his time in the G League.
Sometime in the G League. We're going to see. We're going to see. It's a week away, and we're going to see. We're going to see what Bronny James has worked on. We're going to see what he is as a player. We have a preseason that's going to come up. He'll get some run in the preseason. Let's see what the young man can do. But let's not bury him because he's LeBron James's son, and how anybody that had a son, if they had that power, would have done the same thing. Let the man develop.
So, but I question why people say bury him. Nobody's burying him. I'm talking about what I've seen. So if what I've seen is telling me that he's not NBA ready, that means I'm hating on the kid. That means that I can't look at a product on the floor and say, hell, even Jaylen Brown said it at the summer league game, and he's not NBA. He's not. Like, we got to at least be honest about it. Nobody cares about the fact that he's Bron's son. Everybody loves the fact that Bron can wield that power. More damn power to him. But we still got to be honest about the talent. We can't be honest about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know me. I when it comes to basketball, I'm gonna call you when a basketball game on, and I'm gonna pick your brain because you know the game. But I just think it's skewed just a little because you go back to high school, you go like all this stuff. And in the summer league, you would killing him for the bad games that he had early, but you didn't praise him for the good games he had late. So I think there's a little bit of bias there in your evaluation. But you know what? We're a month away, so we're going to get a chance to see this stuff. Like we said earlier today about the Buffaloes, we're going to see it right in front of our eyes. I'm looking forward to opening night to see what goes on. But look, guys, at the end of the show today, great show, guys. We appreciate everybody that commented. Please remember to subscribe to After the Buzzers with Lee and Marv, and also ISF Productions. Guys, we need you guys. We need you to tell friends about us. This is how we do it. This is great sports talk. What do you say, Marv? Great sports talk, no chaser. So I love it. And guys, we want you guys to take this ride with us. We'll be back tomorrow, 6:45 Central, 7:45 Eastern, to do our NFL wrap-up show. We'll have a couple of more topics in there. WNBA playoffs is starting. We have a couple more items that we're going to address, but it's been a great show. Marv, you have any parting shots?
Let's see what them Buffs do tonight. I'm looking forward to it.
Hey, always hate, man. Recycle me, always hate. But hey, this has been another episode of After the Buzzers with Lee and Marv Sports Podcast. We'll get with y'all tomorrow. Have a great college football day. We'll holler at you tomorrow, 6:45 p.m. Central. Have a good evening. Good day.